Welcome to Well Coached, a podcast about how people, sales, profit, and self can transform your business. I'm your host, Chris Weinberg, and I have helped hundreds of entrepreneurs get into their highest productivity zone and become corporate enough to succeed. Let's get into today's episode. Hey, welcome to Well Coached, guys. I'm your host, Chris Weinberg, and this is a podcast about how people, sales, profit, and self can transform your business. I've helped hundreds of entrepreneurs find their highest productivity zone to where they can become corporate enough, chase their dreams, have a successful life in business and in their personal life. And with that said, let's get into today's episode. I'm so tickled to have two of my good friends, Emily and Ben Eggebrecht, here today. They are the founders and owners of Consider the Widflwrs, which is my favorite jewelry store and jewelry manufacturer of custom fine jewelry here in Nashville, although they work all over the country. I've gotten to know these guys over the last few years, and I'm just tickled to share their story and dive into it with you. They've got quite a story. They met back at Belmont in 2010, and a little spark flew when they went over to Italy with a choir. They were both musicians, and found I think Ben maybe found an interest in Emily in Italy, and maybe she made him chase a little while. But took a little bit. Yeah, it took a little bit, and we'll get into all that. But I want to talk about their journey. They've been doing this. The business opened in 2013, and the beautiful part about this entrepreneurial story is it started the way a lot of entrepreneurs start, like either in a basement or in a bedroom or in a car or just in your head. And I believe you started in your bedroom, right?
Yeah. Bedroom.
Started in the bedroom, and we'll fast forward all the way to today where they have a beautiful flagship store over in Edge Hill Village, and do a great business there, as well as a huge e-commerce platform. And with that said, I think the beauty of these two is they both bring artistic talent to the game, but their brains work in different ways. And it's highly complex to work with partners that you happen to be married to. And there's some major benefits to that because you're always going to trust that person more than anyone else in your hemisphere. And but the downside of that is you share a pillow, and so turning it on and turning it off is a challenge and something that couples navigate. And these two do a fine job at it. So we'll grab into it. So Ben and Emily, welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
this is exciting.
Tell me more about the Italy deal, because that one's new to me. So what happened?
Yeah, well, she was studying music at Belmont, right? Music ed at the time.
Yeah,
I think it was our sophomore year. I just joined choir because I knew they were going to Italy that following summer.
That's a good reason.
So I wasn't doing it for a credit or anything.
That sounds like that.
Yeah.
For the experience, and so yeah, on the choir trip to Italy, I found myself gravitating toward Emily and sort of trying to manipulate situations to where we'd be in the same group of friends, going on
the gondola
excursions or the gondola, things like that.
Did you share the gondola? Were you in the same gondola?
We were in the same gondola, but with six other people.
Yeah.
So after the trip, got back home, kind of went our separate ways for a little while, a couple of years. Yeah. We'd see, each other around campus and things like that. And
we would get coffee at Frothy Monkey on 12th
Frothy Monkey,
so
back in the day.
We would do homework together, and then we started co-writing.
Yep.
And that was kind of just my excuse to hang out with people, because at that point, I think I knew that music wasn't my strong suit. But co-writing was a fun way to collaborate with people.
And to get in the same room as me.
Yeah. And my experience on the Italy trip was I had never met anyone so enthusiastic about pasta and wine and experiences. And I would just sit there like, is he serious right now? And he was serious. And I did fall in love with his passion for some of the smallest things.
Yeah, that's really interesting and cool. And one thing you guys know that are listening, and Ben and Emily, we rely a lot on the DISC profile to help us navigate human behavior. And these two are complete opposites, and which is beautiful. And so when you say things like, I recognized his passion, Ben carries this in the DISC profile, this high I, which means passionate about lots of stuff. And so I clearly get that. And that's an attractive thing to pull toward. And I think that also suits you guys really well too, because Emily, you're different. You've got this SC running around in your DISC profile. He's got an I. So you're clear on the opposites attract. You had some common bonds around creativity and artistry and music and that kind of things. but the old saying opposites attract really works for you too. And
it's true.
And lives today. And we'll talk about that a little bit. So we'll dive into it. And what I see about the beauty of these guys is Emily brings this really good design eye for creating the jewelry. Her instincts are second to none in terms of what's coming, what's hot, what are the consumers going to be at. And then Ben brings this great steadiness and marketing and business acumen to the team. And so it works. It works day by day. So at Well Coached, we focus on these 4 pillars of trying to get them in harmony of the people, sales, profit, and self. So let's dive into that a little bit. And we'll talk about people first. So balancing the roles. How's it going? You're balancing your partnership at home. You're being parents. And I didn't mention yet, but these guys have 4 and under. Right?
5 and under.
4 that are 5 and under,
yep.
And another one on the way. So 4 boys, 5 and under, and a 5th, which is going to be a girl,
yep.
Is on the way. So they've got lots that they're balancing together as a couple and as business partners. How do you maintain a healthy balance?
Work in progress.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to say first and foremost. I'll let you.
Yeah, we discussed being honest on the podcast. Chris knows as much as anybody that it's a work in progress. But I think one of the key things, so I remember sitting at Sweet Cece's in Hill Center when I was there back in 2013 and telling Ben, I think I'm going to make jewelry. And we were sitting there and he was like, okay. And I remember it being this collaborative thing from the beginning, even though he didn't necessarily work from Consider at first and he had worked other jobs. But when he came in, it was like so natural because the whole time I had been talking to him about it, working through decisions and all of that. So when we started working together more full time, the biggest challenge was figuring out what we were good at. Because as a business owner at that stage, you have to wear all these hats. Like you're the salesperson, you're the finance person, you're the, you have to do the people stuff and the logistics stuff and the process stuff. And you have to make it or, however, right. That's how it was for us.
Yeah.
And so at some point, the friction was so great because I had a hard time letting go of things, even though I wasn't best at them and I didn't necessarily love them as much as other parts. So I think finding a groove to where realizing that Ben was the people person and also sales and marketing, even though that was newer to him, like selling jewelry or selling diamonds. And my thing was more of the logistics side and the creative side. So finding our own lanes was very key. And I would say we've still been trying to get, because I can, especially since I have been in a lot of the seats, being that we bootstrapped the company, I can be easily tempted to kind of go in and take over and, restart something from ground zero. And you guys both stabilize me a lot to kind of realize, that it needs to be somebody else. And a lot of times it needs to be Ben.
Yeah, that's good. You have anything to add to that? Or?
Yeah, I mean, it does feel very fluid. But I feel like the past couple of years, especially being parents to little ones, we've had to be more intentional about our lanes at home and at work.
Right.
What's talked about at home and at work, trying not to blend too much of our, personal life with work, things like that. Again, work in progress. And it is fluid, but I do think we've found, at least in this season, a pretty good idea of what our individual lanes are. Yeah. Like you said, I love people. I love being at the flagship and around our team, seeing clients and their faces when they see the engagement ring they picked out for the first time, or congratulating them when they come in after getting married in the Bahamas or something, and they're all tan, and we get to talk about their experience. That stuff really drives me. And that sort of blends into marketing a little bit too, just knowing our customer. And again, I think for me, my lane relies heavily on people and how much I love people. Not to say that Emily doesn't, obviously, but that's just something that's always really, really driven me.
Yeah, that's your domain expertise is around personality.
Yeah.
And which is wonderful. And coming into the business with her, you definitely had a transferable skill set, and that is how to get along with others and make people feel good about what they're doing. And that is a skill set that is not easily taught, and it's natural for you there, which is great. So let's dive in on that a little bit. So Emily, you mentioned when you guys started and you bootstrapped, that's typical, right? Like you got to wear every hat, jack of all trades. Then all of a sudden you start finding some success, and that gets bumpy because you can't do everything. And so insert Ben, here he comes. Now that starts working it out. Now you've got this 11, we're 11, right? We just turned 11?
Yeah. 11
Congratulations,
years.
11 years old. So now over that course of time, the team starts evolving. So walk us through that a little bit. How has the team evolved? How do we look for the right people now? How do you become a team member at Consider? And talk about maybe the evolution of when we started adding folks, because your atoms only split so far, right? You can't do everything. You've got to start giving out trust, which can be very difficult when you've been the owner of every part of the success. To start doling out trust is difficult. So finding people who share your values and vision is an effort. And so let's talk about that. How's the team evolved, and how do you become a team member? What are we looking for when we're going after folks?
So it's evolved a lot, as I'm sure any small business, especially in the last few years, has experienced. But I think we've really found our groove in the type of people that we're looking for, having a priority of the customer and hospitality and understanding, our priority being excellence also. It goes back to the experience that we've had in Italy, and the experiences that we've had at really great restaurants, really great shopping stores. It's not just that the store is pristine and excellent and the product itself is just very high quality. It's also the experience and the conversation. And so we interview with that in mind, and we can't always tell until we get someone in the door and see them talking with our clients and see them caring for our clients. I feel like with a lot of the hiring lately, Ben's been doing a lot of those initial interviews, and he has a really good gut about people.
Yeah.
Could be partially the high I as well in the disc.
Yeah.
No, I think jewelry, especially fine jewelry, is deeply personal. And so I think having a team that truly understands that and can meet people where they're at in life, whether it's a high or a low, is very important for what we do. We're dealing with very unique and, sometimes once in a lifetime purchases and experiences with our clients. And for us as leaders, that's not taken lightly. And we don't want our team to take that lightly either. And I think we built a team that truly does appreciate and understand that. I think first and foremost, it's the emotional intelligence, I think, is a huge, huge part of what we're looking for.
Awesome.
In terms of, the sales floor employees and the people who are working one-on-one with customers, clients.
Yeah. That's a good point. And I often say to folks, you've got competitors, right? There are other people who make jewelry. And so what are the things that can make us different? And the people side of the business is always it, how we treat people, how you make people feel. Y'all see it every day. If someone's coming over from a different competitor, or maybe the ring was pretty, but they didn't feel great in the environment. And you focus a lot on that and are keenly aware of it, which is great. People like to do business with people they like. Mm-hmm. And you're focused on that, and mentioning the high EQ thing. That is something that so many people don't pay attention to, is how do you read the room the right way? How can you adjust? And you just spoke to all of that.
And I worked for a while in the hospitality industry, in restaurants, being a bartender and server and barista. And I think a lot of that emotional intelligence was built during that time period, 3 or 4 year time period, and being in the music industry as well, which is also a deeply personal industry, right? Where people are really sharing their life story and their, they're truly like the innermost parts of themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, I always say everybody should work hospitality for at least 2 or 3 years in their life, right? Just to learn how to deal with others and things like that. So you got this team. How many team members are we up to now? 13. Yeah, man. What a journey. And how do we maintain, what do we do in terms of, because you got this a little bit of a high pressure situation because you've got people, like you said, they're intimately personal with what they're doing. So that creates pressure points for sure. Growing a business creates pressure points within the team. How do you guys work on paying attention to culture and morale and things like that? How do you keep the team happy?
Like you said earlier, it does take a long time to get there with trust, but trusting the right people to delegate to and be able to take responsibility of some of the team. And also we've built a very extensive training program. So just spending a lot of time, which was really hard for me to get used to because I wanted it to be like, okay, you're here, you're going to get thrown in just like I was, or, and I want everyone to just adjust and learn on their own. I have such high expectations, but I've really learned the patience in the process of you don't just start with a great team member. You really have to build it in through that. There might be some times that the morale is not great because there is some friction, but that's a really good part of the relationship in the process too, because molding people to become more excellent, to maybe recognize things that they don't naturally recognize, knowing their disc, being able to speak into their weaknesses and help them recognize that and combat that against whatever, job challenges that they have. That also helps them grow. And so that's really important. I forgot your original question.
No, that's, yeah.
To add to that, I think constant contact with the team, like daily contact and conversation is really important for morale. And encouraging that amongst the team, even back of house to front of house, which leads me to, this is one of the reasons we decided to consolidate our storefronts and our jewelers, to be under one roof a year ago. Just to strengthen that sort of bond. So now if you walk to our conference room at our flagship, you have to walk through the storefront and then past, fulfillment and e-com and everything else and the jewelers to get to our conference room. And I think that just really strengthens the bond as a whole.
That's good. Team. Yeah. I call that manage by walking around, right? You've got the proximity approach. So you're going to see each other and that helps. And then to your point, Emily, so oftentimes entrepreneurials or it doesn't have to be an entrepreneur, leaders will want to hire someone and say, just go do it. Right. Or, and that doesn't work you're relying on hope and luck at that point. And your job or our job is to show what good performance looks like and therefore the training program. And I think most people in general want to do the right thing if they know what the right thing is. We just can't assume that they're going to know what the right thing is. And so the training programs become everything. As excruciatingly painful as that may be on a daily basis, right?
Yeah.
Well, last question in the people section. Let's talk about conflict resolution and how we deal with conflict. Because y'all have it. You're a married couple. Every married couple has conflict, and every business partnership has conflict. Y'all are business partners. How do you get through it? How do we recognize conflict? How do we do conflict resolution? How do we get to the other side of it?
Don't let it fester. Is like my number one thing that I've learned.
Okay.
Just get it out in the open as soon as possible.
Yeah.
With an employee or a colleague or spouse.
Yeah.
I would
get
say
it out in the open, have a conversation.
Between Ben and I, we do not let things fester. In fact, we kind of have learned to just hit each other head on and then deal with it after. And I think what's been really important is to stop and recognize, back to emotional intelligence. Is this like a flight, fight, freezer, fawn situation? Why am I reacting this way? Like, why is this affecting me emotionally so much? And then for us to stop and say, this is the right time to talk about this, or this is not the right time to talk about this, and I need to go process this way, or we need to bring this person in to help us analyze this. And that goes with, there's quite a few people we get to manage like separately, and we don't discuss them and deal with that together necessarily. But managing people together can be really challenging because like Ben has said, it's not something we want to bring home. So, it's the practice and patience and self-control to say, you know what, we're going to pause this. We're going to write it down and discuss it at this set time.
Yeah.
And I think we respect each other too, to the point where we trust that we're communicating the right way with these employees that we're working alongside or managing. Like, I know we communicate differently to people. That's just because of our DISC profiles and our communication styles. And, me, for example, trusting that she's going to have a meeting that's productive and will have a great end result. I mean, she's going to get there probably in a very different way than I'm going to get there, just based on communication style. But having this mutual respect and trust in each other that, like, hey, like, I understand and believe that you have this situation handled.
Yeah.
And, we don't need to bring it home.
Yeah. Your goals and values are aligned.
Yeah.
Right. And how you get there might look a little different.
Right.
And I also appreciate the fact that you just say the thing now. And I like to call that run toward the conflict, right? Where most people are conflict averse, right? But not everybody, but most people are conflict averse. And the best thing to always do is run straight forward and just get it out there and say it. Because at the end of the day, conflict only happens with two people. If you care about something, that's the only time conflict happens. And so you both care immensely. Right. Or even if that's an employee. So it's better not to push it under the rug. It's better just to talk about it. Right. And get through it, which you'll have become masters at. Let's move on to the sales a little bit. I'd like to talk about the sales evolution. When you first started in 2013 in your bedroom and you had the first thing for sale, all the way to how do we sell things now? How has the evolution of our sales strategy changed over time to adapt to what you're selling, where you are, and market demands?
First of all, I just want to say I'm so excited that we're done with the people section.
Yeah. No,
I'm kind of bummed.
Yeah, and this is great for the folks out there in podcast land who aren't overly familiar with DISC yet. Ben is the ultimate people person. That is his natural lane. Emily cares deeply about people, but it's just not as flamboyant. It's more subdued. It's more supportive in nature. And she's got a more logic-based thinking mind. Ben has a more emotion-based thinking mind. That's the beauty of the pairing. And as we continue to talk about DISC over the course of time, there is no right or wrong. There's just an is, and understanding who you are. It's never about changing. It's about recognizing who you are and putting the right folks around you to handle things that may not be most natural. So it would be totally normal for Emily to go, woo, we're done with the people section. Yeah. It'd be totally normal for Ben to go, can we talk more about people? And that's fine. But so thanks for teeing up that.
Yeah,
there you go.
So let's talk about the sales.
Marketing,
let's talk about the sales.
finance,
Let's talk about the sales evolution. So you started 2013, you had something to sell. And how has that journey continued to evolve based on what you're selling and based on market changes?
Yeah. In 2013, I started online, and it was really one of a kind things that I made and sold, and then that could fund my next idea. And so it was like a monthly drop. So I think it was July, August, September. It was monthly drops. And I think my goal was to do a craft fair in December. And so I ended up getting into 2 different craft fairs. And as most entrepreneurs would do, I said, yes. I said, I'll make it all myself and go to Brooklyn, come home, do finals, do Porter Flea the next weekend, which is the local craft fair that I did. So it was so much fun. And I just loved merchandising the table. I don't know if you knew this, but I did do music and realized I liked my merch table more than I liked getting on stage. So that was like I love making a little scene and having the branding of it all and making the little products. So I was just really having fun creating and very inspired by fashion and just like I was really inspired by the other people at the craft fair. So I remember that experience and every experience like that had opened my eyes to more. So the girl next to me, she's like, well, do you have a line sheet? I'm like, how do you sell to stores? And she's like, well, do you have a line sheet? And I was like, what is a line sheet? And I actually Googled, what is a line sheet? and looking back now, I just think, wow, I just can't believe how little I knew. And so it just started happening, like the in-person experiences. And I would say, hey, Ben, like, this is my vision for this next craft fair. You know, who do we know that can build this structure for us? And I think people loved to see each time we came somewhere, it was a very different experience, always focused on textures and things like that. So that did carry through to eventually we did open a storefront, but a lot of it was photography, video, you know, kind of showcasing that through online sales. So it really started online, started with not fine jewelry, demi-fine jewelry. And that's just all that we could afford. So I was just growing at the speed of cash for a very long time. So
that's a great comment, by the way, growing at the speed of cash. One day we'll talk about that in depth on the finance side, but that is a brilliant quote. So yes. I'm going to steal it from here on out.
Yeah, I obviously heard that somewhere, but that rang true for me because, you know, it was like, I can afford a desk for $150 a month now. And so I worked at a place called Fort Houston. There was a lot of other coworkers there. I was next to a ceramicist. She did ceramics, obviously. So I was like, can I use your kiln and make beads for my jewelry? And, you know, kind of we would trade around and I would just make it work with the very, very little cash that I had. So it was not glamorous at all. There was no air conditioning there, no heat. So I had black boogers every day. I talk about the black boogers.
That's amazing.
With all the woodworking and all the stuff going on in the building. Anyways,
which is now, that location is now a Soho house. And her desk is where like the swimming pool is.
Yeah.
So it's definitely seen a lot of life, that little lot in Wedgwood, Houston.
Fast forward now, you know, 10, 11 years later. How do you decide now?
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like
so,
and I want to say one more thing too before I forget it. Guys out there in podcast land, this is the epitome of betting on yourself, right? Like everybody's got a talent. Everybody's got something to do. And Emily, from a disc profile standpoint, you would normally think people with these high D's or high I's are the ones who go jump off the pier and become these business operators, which is true. She doesn't have either of those. She's got this SC energy going on with a rising D. She's got plenty of grit. But anybody can go do this, right? And you think about when you're laying down bets in your life, our older generations may have stayed at the same job their entire life. Then the next generation was maybe they changed jobs 7 times. Now it's a whirlwind. So betting on yourself is every bit as safe as going to work for someone else. So if you've got the idea, jump off the pier and go get it. And that's what you did.
Yeah. I wanted to be able to make money to be able to travel and do these craft fairs. I was always justifying like, I'm going to go to Portland and do this craft fair and meet a bunch of random people. But, you know, if people don't come to my thing, I'm going to go talk to every single other person and give them my card and collaborate. Or I did a lot of that. And then it was at a craft fair in Chicago that I met someone and he kind of swung around and he was like, saying he did wholesale diamonds or something. And I was like, what does that mean? You know, I'm back in my, 4 years prior where I was like, what is a line sheet? And by that point I was selling to stores. I was doing gold filled and I had started making gold wedding bands because people liked our aesthetic, our style. And we had friends that were like, can you make my wedding band? And I was like, yeah, sure. I could try that. And I was very much a yes person. So all over the place with the offerings that would make money.
Okay, time out, run there because that's a good point. When you start your business, you say yes to everything, right? So anybody that'll give you a check, anybody that'll pay you, you say yes. And as your expertise and competence in business starts growing, that's when you start focusing down.
Yep.
Yeah.
But so thank you for walking me right into the next lesson. Division can't be too tight in the beginning. You got to take money from anybody who will give you money.
And we did merch too. Like for artists in town, like labels would hire her to, create how many, like literally thousands.
Yeah, that was further along. I was going to say I was kind of letting the customer and whoever would talk to me tell me what they wanted. Do you do flowers for wedding? Yes, sure. I do that. I can do your wedding. And I was doing workshops like to teach flower arranging or jewelry or whatever so that I could get a free desk month at Fort Houston. I was working through trades and a lot of that. Yeah. And Ben's talking about later, the opportunity came up to make necklaces for Magnolia Market or to make bracelets for King and Country, the band. And I would say yes. And then I would come tell Ben, yo, you want to watch The Office for hours and hours and hours? And the next week, work on these packaging and this stuff with me. So it was a lot of that. And back to getting into fine jewelry, it just kind of happened because people started asking and I started saying, well, if this is what people want and it's exciting me and I can envision more bridal, more, what about a band with diamonds in it? What about an actual engagement ring? And so the doors started opening and people started asking and they loved the aesthetic of what we were doing. And eventually I realized I can't do both. Like it has to be, we either take a step and a stride forward into fine jewelry or we continue to do demi fine jewelry. And at the time, decided to completely switch to fine jewelry. There's obviously more risk. The inventory is more costly. The mistakes are more costly, right. And it's a higher price point. So, that comes along with all the other education and all that. So I think the best growth times in the last 11 years have been, and you guys both know this, you've been working with us since our son was 1 month old in 2019. Wow. I remember that being like, well, thank God for this guy.
Here in a little car seat.
Wow. What I was going to say is the biggest growth seasons is when I've been able to keep my blinders on.
Okay.
And there's no fear, not no fear, but I forget about the fear of XYZ and I just move forward with the excitement of creative innovation through product design and people. Right. And I mean, circling back to people, I would say I get very excited to design, but there's a balance. Like we don't call ourselves a trendy business. Like a big part of it has always been simplicity and something that's wearable for a very long time.
There is another angle. We do a lot of custom work as well. So I mean, we do listen to clients. Like if they come in with an idea, like we won't do anything under the sun, but sure, but I think ultimately it's Emily's vision and her,
for the new product design. But the customer is such a big part of that because I mean, I can think of countless stories, both positive milestones and negative milestones where I'm like, I'm just sitting here with this person that just lost somebody. And now we're going to talk about, designing a piece for them. And this is like a really big deal for them. And Ben says it so well, like the jewelry that we create, because it's fine jewelry, just truly like collects memories, kind of like a photo does. And I love it more than a tattoo, even though Ben has a lot of tattoos, but I love just that you can kind of choose if you want to share that story or not.
Right.
You can choose to wear it or not, or you can choose to have a hidden message or, meaning. But it can just be a reminder to yourself about what you've been through and kind of your own resilience through those moments. So I love, commemorating milestones, like happy milestones, graduations and marriages and all that stuff too. But there have been some more serious things that we've been able to create for.
Yeah. That's so you're just about an empathetic caretaker at times of whatever people are going through, which is beautiful. Yeah, that's awesome. On the financial part, typically entrepreneurs, unless they're accountants, don't say, I can't wait to start my business because I can't wait to manage a profit and loss statement. Especially with creatives, and you two are creatives, no doubt about that. However, you're now in business in your 11th year. You've managed to stay afloat. How do you manage the financial part of your business, right? As you're making these decisions to grow, whether it's team members, whether it's the next product line, whether it's building a storefront, do you have help around the financial guardrails part? I know the answer already.
Yeah.
Tell us how we go about it.
Are you sure you don't want to answer? No, I'm just kidding. Well, a bookkeeper has been essential for years. I think probably 7 years at least we've had that.
Yes.
And before that, I just didn't know any better. Yeah. So that's essential. And an accountant and like you said, having a guardrails, a budget that we can check ourselves against. So we can say, hey, Chris, like, does this sound like a good marketing opportunity? Or that's probably what we get most excited about and can get the most carried away with together, because we can, create this idea in our heads that's going to be so awesome.
That's where we really need to focus on ROI and really knowing that it's going to move the needle.
It's so interesting because when you start the business, it's a passion. Maybe it's a passion, but something you're good at, hopefully combined with a passion, maybe not, which I think it was for you. And then up and running you go. And your journey is when we met, you had a bookkeeper and she was fine, but you just kind of outgrew her, right? Yeah. And so businesses change gears, right? And you've done a good job I'm a huge proponent of getting outsourced accounting work to let the creative be in their zone versus trying to figure out what's 2 + 2, right? There's other people that can tell you what 2 + 2 are. Yeah. And you live really well with a budget of trying to make good financial sound decisions, which can be excruciatingly painful at times, but the drudgery of the numbers will always set you free because the numbers have no emotion tied to them. And so that's, I think you've done a really solid job of that. And any business that's been around 11 years has done something right in terms of managing their finances. So, this is for everyone too. What you want to work for in financial management, you kind of be working toward no surprises. What you want to do is eliminate as much surprise as you possibly can. You can never eliminate all of it, but having good guardrails, good, consistent financial reporting where we're actually looking at the numbers allows us to go be creative and do other things, right? So I kind of just answered your question for you.
Yeah. I mean, weekly cash flow sheets, things like that.
Did you ever think 10 years ago that we'd be looking at weekly cash flow sheets? I mean, like no entrepreneur ever thinks
Especially not me.
Right. And so now you're like this real business. I mean, right? You're this real thing that has sophistication to it and the balance of the profit side. Because at the end of the day, eventually, if you don't have profit, you will not be in business at some point. And you guys have done a really good job of maintaining that, even through difficult times, right? Yep. I mean, and sometimes we have difficult times. And one thing I want to say about these guys is every business has ups and downs. I mean, every single business, and being able to weather that is sometimes gut wrenching, but also character building, and also shows that you can get through things. Having great financial reporting helps that because it helps take some anxiety out of the way when you can look at facts versus feelings. Yep. Yeah. And a lot of time creatives, especially with your products, you're dealing with feelings, or even with your clients, right? You're feeling things with them. They're feeling things back. The numbers don't have any feelings. They're just facts. And so it's a good collision. Those things are good collisions.
Yeah. And I don't want that to be taken lightly. I definitely think it was probably 1 year ago that I have always been like this. My mom always says I'm upset after Christmas is over, but we hit our 10 years and my expectations were just astronomical. Yeah. And then it was this, whether it was like hormones and just a combination of things, I just started feeling like, oh my gosh, like I'm doubting myself. And that's all I could really focus on. And I remember you looked at me and you were like, Emily, this is like, you either have grit or you don't. And I've thought about that so many times. I'm like, I don't. And you guys know I say that kind of stuff all the time. And then it was almost like I had to do a lot of the hard work of really understanding the P&L and really understanding the impact of certain decisions about the cost of goods or about expenses. And honestly, too, kind of I've had to create more guardrails with us so that he's not asking me almost like permission for marketing things or whatever. So that's been a big learning part for us the whole last year, is just finding that confidence again and looking back and saying, like, we know how to run a profitable business. Mm-hmm. And it was just a season that I think I needed to experience myself. And also, even though you don't call it failure, it felt like failure to me in so many ways, because I just felt not like myself. Not being, not feeling creative, not feeling like I could do it anymore. And a big part of that is people, going back to people. It's time after time going through like 2020 and 2021 and people coming and people going and people doing their own thing. And, just that along with outside competition in the market and new businesses. And so, it's all there. Yeah. It's a matter of being able to climb out of that and know that we're in a tunnel, like walking through a tunnel and there's light on the other side and not a hole. Yeah.
It's not a train coming at you. It's a light.
Yeah.
Right. That's beautiful. When you mentioned the climb part, like every business goes through peaks and valleys, and people don't fall on top of mountains. They climb on top of mountains. And that's what you've been doing for 10 years. And you're going to have peaks and valleys. Every one of us has those. And what we want to try to do is rush through the valley, like recognize that we're in it and how do we speed up? And I think we did it. We got through it. And guys, nothing detrimental happened to their business, by the way. It was just kind of a little bit more of an off year where Emily's dealing with a whole bunch of kids and a new pregnancy. But we got through it, right? We got through it. And all that does is show your resilience, show your grit, set you up for a bigger future, all of that kind of stuff. It definitely made all three of us better teammates, no doubt about that. And we're strong. I consider myself your teammate, but we're definitely stronger because of it. We know how to look at things differently to try to avoid the next thing. Next time we get in trouble or have a valley, and we will, it won't be the same valley, right? Because we know how to handle that one. So there'll be another valley, but that's entrepreneurship. And that gets back to, I'd much rather have you betting on yourself than betting on some Acme company to decide your future. You're in charge of your future, which is beautiful. Okay, we're going to round it out with the self part because you guys are loaded with self stuff. We could talk about this all day. So work-life balance. You guys are someday going to be able to write a book on it because you're about to have your fifth kid, and so many folks say, I can't because I've got this in my life. I got this. You guys don't pay any attention to that. You just go. And that's where, Emily, when you were saying earlier, I said, I don't have any grit. You're like the epitome of grit. I mean, like you were managing more than most people will ever have to manage in their life. And I want you to share a little bit about how do you guys do that? You got these 4 wonderful kids, another one on the way. You got a successful business. You got a friendship group. You have a faith in your life that you pay attention to as well. So how intentional is that? It ain't by luck. I mean, you got to be paying a lot of attention just to get through the day at your house.
Yeah.
One, as far as like how much, like the capacity of managing it all, I really feel like I look at my sisters, they're the same way. I think I was just raised with this high capacity of productivity and go, 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 go.
Okay.
And I really appreciate that lesson from my parents. And then you mentioned faith, and I thought, well, that's how we actually get through it, because maybe I'll sign up for something crazy, or we'll sign a lease and we're like, we've moved the business 12 times. Like that is crazy.
Wow. In 11 years.
Wow. In 11 years. So there's always something. There's always a new idea. There's always a new baby.
Yeah.
Always.
And no, we're done after this.
Ben's starting to sweat.
Yeah. No, but it's very exciting. Like I feel like both of us, I mean, we've known this about each other. We grab life by the horns and we're like, let's go. And then we're like, what did we get ourselves into? And we turn back, to each other, to our marriage, to faith. I can think back on the last 6 to 12 months, the best parts of the day were like reading books to our kids or, teaching them playing baseball. And yeah.
And I think reverting back to like what inspires us is really important. Like you diving into whether it be like interiors or, things just for fun that you enjoy for the sake of enjoying. Like with me, I love running. When I'm in a season where I'm consistently running like at least 3 times a week, I feel like my best self. Yeah. It could be a 45-minute run. And it'll just completely change the game for me. So that's one thing I've learned about just taking care of myself that I really, really need. And the other thing is just hanging out with the kids. I think when I get home from work, it's almost like I have no choice but to focus on nothing other than the boys, at this point, because they need attention and they want to play and they want to go outside and play catch. And I do not want to miss a second of this season of life. So in a sense, having kids that young, I feel like it might make it easier work-life balance in a way, because I said, I have no choice. When I walk through the door, they tackle me. You
cannot be solely focused on the
literally
business.
Just come and tackle me. Right. And so I can't focus on business at all. Yeah. So I think that's a big part of it too. But yeah, again, being prayerful. We try to pray together, at least once a day. And, going to church weekly is big for us and the boys. And as crazy as they can be sitting in church or just, whining for snacks or or whatever else, we know that it's a very important part of our family.
It's a season.
And it's a season.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. And that's beautiful. And I like the way you said, you've kind of got these guardrails around you with these boys. When you walk in the door, they're going to tackle you. And so you have to change focus. And the thing here is so many entrepreneurs, when they start their business, will fall in love with the business. And so everything else goes to hell in a handbasket, right? Whether it's a marriage or other relationships or things like that. And at the end of the day, it's just a business, right? The business doesn't define who you are. Who defines who you are is each other and those babies. And so I'm proud of you for that and keep it up. And that's a lesson for everybody. The business will be there tomorrow, but you've got to have outlets. Exercise is an absolute dopamine hit that everybody ought to be doing that alleviates stress better than anything else in the world. Having a faith and a community around that faith-based is super important too, because at the end of the day, one day the business won't be there, but each other will be there and those kids will be there and all of that. So that's amazing. So yeah. Well, we'll wrap it, but thank you all for sharing this story with us. And guys, these guys are the epitome of the American dream. I don't know if they know that yet or not, but they're full of grit and passion, and they took transferable skill sets, right? They were both in music business, which is highly creative, highly demanding. You got to have tons of grit just to be in that space as well. And they transferred it. They transferred that skill set into another business that's also highly creative. You don't have to play a guitar or be in front of a microphone to be called an artist. They are absolutely artists, the same way a chef is an artist or things like that. So highly creative business, and then putting principles around it to grow all at the same time while growing and maintaining a family is quite an accomplishment. So I'm happy to be a part of your journey, and thanks for sharing with us today. You've been a massive
part and huge help in our journey. I mean,
yeah. Well, I was going to say, I think one of the hardest things as an entrepreneur is actually the mental side, because when I think back about the last 11 years, there's, we've had break-ins, we've had theft in the middle of the day, we've had the tornado, we've had, personally, we've had to experience the NICU during the pandemic. Right. There's so many points of resilience that I'm like, okay, we keep going. But there is the mental side and being able to have a coach that's like, snap out of it. Or, you don't usually talk to me like that, but sometimes I want you to. I'm like, give me the real stuff.
Emily gets mad at me when I do that.
And I ask for it.
That's right.
Just tell me how it is. Come on. Tell me to snap out of it.
Well, you've built an amazing amount of grit, and that's going to keep going. So your baseline of how to get through things is just you're far past your youthful years of knowing how to deal with tough stuff. And as a business owner too, it's okay to be nervous. Nervous people tend to perform better as long as the nervousness is not paralyzing. And we don't let it get paralyzed. We push, right? We get nervous. Every business owner gets nervous, but we push. We don't stop and wallow in it. So way to go. I'm proud of you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks for having us.
This is awesome.
All right, guys. That's Emily and Ben from Consider the Widflwrs. Check them out online, or if you're in Nashville, come to the store because it's an amazing experience there. And the journey continues. Have a great day. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.